How are you guys?
Hello, I'm good.
That's great. How are you, Hadi?
Hi everyone, I'm fine. Thank you, Lumika. How are you?
We're doing great. We're so excited to talk to you guys today about stem cells and discuss this fascinating topic. So, thank you guys for joining us today. But yeah, so Avani, do you want to present the slideshow you created?
Yes, I would love to. Can you enable sharing access for me?
Oh,
Oh, yes.
yes.
Thanks. And hi, Emma and Hadi. Good to see you guys again.
Share. Okay, Avani, you should have access to share your screen now.
Thanks. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, like Bhumika said, we're very happy to have you guys here with us today to talk about stem cell research, which is definitely very important and very prominent in the field of medicine. So, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so to start off, let's start by talking about what we first found interesting. So who wants to go first and share two things that they found interesting from the article?
I can go.
Oh, perfect. Thanks for volunteering.
Yes. Um, well, I found first I've heard about stem cells before, and I've heard about the bone marrow transplants, but I found it interesting how many other places it's found, especially the adipose tissue. I found that was interesting. I also the asymmetrical division of stem cells. I didn't know about that, and that was really interesting. How it's able to the stem cells are able to keep their population by steady by having one of the daughter cells be identical and the other one is the differentiated version. I found that interesting.
I agree, yes. And I like going off of that, I also found it interesting how there are numerous types of stem cells. And so I liked how the article talked about it and I also did some research outside and I found how there's embryonic stem cells which can divide into or differentiate into any type of cell in the body. And then there's adult stem cells which are very limited, but they can still differentiate as well. Um, and I found it really interesting about induced pluripotent stem cells, or iPSCs for short, and how you can reprogram an adult stem cell to become, well, to have the abilities of an embryonic stem cell and then differentiate it into any cell type in the body. And apparently that won a Nobel Peace Prize. Or not a Nobel Peace Prize, a Nobel Prize in medicine and physiology, I believe. So I found that really interesting.
Yeah, and Emma, I really liked how you also mentioned the bone marrow transplant, as the bone marrow produces a lot of different types of stem cells, so I found that very interesting as well. And I was very surprised with how many uses stem cells have in medicine as well. I was reading about skin grafts for burn victims and how stem cells are utilized to help heal the different wounds, and all of this is so fantastic and amazing. So thank you guys for sharing that. And Hadi, what did you find interesting about the article?
Okay, so again, I'm really sorry. I don't know if it's the type of article that we're, usually discussing. I think is the third one, but it's just, the general stance of having these totipotent cells, being able to form like a whole species, a living species. And its ability to proliferate into various cell lineages and form different organ tissues, and it's just a one cell. So it's not kind of that enough space. Like it's not a sandbox to create a living species, but it actually does. So that's, you know, really fascinating. And how, you know, it can be extracted from one specific place, let's say from the human body, and it can still, you know, um not like replace, but you know, act as a reproductive type of cell that can, you know, function in another organ. So that's pretty interesting. That's the whole point of it.
Yes, I really like how you mentioned that, how stem cells can be utilized to like make specific objects, like not objects, but like organs, for instance, which are vital for the human body and living organisms. So I really found that interesting as well, how they have so many reproductive cell abilities and they can form various types of cells. And that is a very good point to bring up. Thanks for sharing
Well,
that.
oh, okay. Thank you. And if I also may make a point, and it's not only, you know, like let's say creative, or, you know, it not only creates like a specific tissue or something, it also regenerates and renews that tissue if it's damaged, and it repairs it. So, you know, it's just the way how, you know, let's say the basic components or the basic functionality of stem cells could really, you know, be like modified to align with the medical situations to, you know, just perfect the organ that in which it's placed, or, you know, the targeted tissue that is damaged, that is, you know. And in the case of embryos, it also just, you know, creates whole new tissues. So that's pretty, you know, agile.
I perfectly agree with you. And yes, I was reading some research articles and it talked about how stem cells are already being used in clinical studies. And, like, for example, one study I was looking at talked about how stem cells are being used in bone marrow transplants for leukemia. And so that goes perfectly with what you were saying about regeneration, because, you know, in leukemia, that's a type of blood cancer where, you know, there are too many blood cells. And so then bone marrow transplants where they're transplanting healthy cells and stem cells that allows the body to regenerate itself into its normal function. And yes, I believe there are also clinical studies with stem cells in Parkinson's disease and neurodegenerative disorders. And so, yes, I think stem cells definitely have a lot of, you know, capacity and potential to really help humankind. But yeah, I wanted to ask you guys a question. So I know that, you know, the medical applications of stem cells are amazing, but I also know that there are lots of ethical considerations and a lot of ethical kind of negative sides towards stem cells. And so I wanted to ask you, what do you guys think about that? As well as, do you think that the positive applications of stem cells in medicine outweigh the ethical considerations, or do you think we should go about it some other way?
Yeah, I think ethical considerations are very important to discuss. So, Emma, I saw you unmuted. So, do you have any comments about this?
Well, this article did a good job of showing like the more ethical ways and things uh like the umbilical cord, you can take that from a donor without harming the donor. So things like that, I think that the scientists should invest more in that type of um, investigating and experimenting, and that way you don't have to worry about the ethical concerns because it's an ethical way of going about it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I really love the way the article discussed like the numerous ways you can extract stem cells, and taking umbilical cord derived stem cells it's a very good idea because it doesn't damage any embryos or hurts the individual. So I really like that point. And in addition, I did want to showcase that there are other extraction methods such as embryonic stem cells extracting it that would cause a lot of ethical concerns, unlike umbilical cord stem cell extraction. Because did you guys read in the article that to extract embryonic stem cells, it results in the death of the blastocyst, which is like a 4 to 5 day old embryo? Do you guys read about that? Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was in the article, but I did do some outside research on it, and I found out that is the main reason stem cells have so much controversy because many religions believe that life begins at conception. And so destroying the blastocyst or an early stage of embryo, that would be unethical because you might be taking away human life. And so that's also something to consider. But I think Bhumika actually was talking to me about this the other day about iPSCs, so the induced pluripotent stem cells, and how they're actually very ethically safe as an alternative, but they're still under some regulatory mechanisms and scrutiny because iPSCs, they are reprogramming the adult stem cells, but they're not resulting in the death of the blastocyst or embryo, which also makes it maybe a potentially safer and ethically sound option. So,
Yes.
Hadi,
Yeah, sorry.
sorry.
And I want to add to that. So, yeah, about induced pluripotent stem cells. So, they are comparatively less, ethically concerning and stuff, but I do want to, take a moment to talk about the negatives or at least the ethical concerns that scientists have about them. And so I was doing some research, and I believe the article also talked about it. But yeah, induced pluripotent stem cells, first of all, they're not as effective, I would say, as embryonic stem cells, just because there was a study that was done, and scientists tried to, obtain induced pluripotent stem cells from adult stem cells. But it took a lot of trials, and it was like there was like 1% or some small number of induced pluripotent stem cells that arose from the adult stem cells. And another thing I want to talk about is induced pluripotent stem cells actually elevate the risk of tumorigenesis as well as immune rejection. And so, although they can somewhat circumvent and, reduce the ethical concerns that are associated with embryonic stem cells, they might end up doing a little bit more damage to patients with, increasing the rate of mutations. And I know one of our previous articles we talked about tumors and tumorigenesis. And so that's why it really emphasizes the need for long-term clinical studies in order to investigate how would stem cell therapies look like and work for patients and humans?
That's a very good point, Bhumika. Thanks for bringing that up as well. I definitely did not recall all of the drawbacks, but also pros of iPSCs. So thanks for reminding me about that. And Hadi, do you have any opinion on the ethical debate whether stem cells should be used or not?
Okay, so to be honest, I just sometimes feel stuck on such controversies because I feel that it's sometimes just exaggerated and you know, a bit of like it doesn't need to be that complicated. So you don't need to restrictively, I guess, I mean, if there aren't any genetic interferences, and if there are, like, if you can take from neonate or adult tissues, if you can extract stem cells from there, I'm not sure if there are any genetic interferences, as I said, but if there are, please enlighten me. So, I don't know why you're supposed to be, take stem cells from embryonic tissues, not from, tissues that would not be affected, or like the blastocysts. So it's not supposed to be restricted to embryonic tissues, but if they have, certain advantages over neonate like tissues, like stem cells extracted from there, like, okay, that might be a point, but after all, what you should really care about is just safety of the patient, like, let's say, their health, and how, you can just repair or maybe kind of regenerate um, the targeted like organ tissue functionality, without causing any harms to like the donor or um, the other person. So I don't think it's supposed to be necessarily an embryo, but if it's like the most, common case and the one which is supposed to be, the conventional, the standard one, yeah, I think there might be a point to that controversy, but otherwise, like neonate and other tissues are right there. So I think you can take advantage of stem cells from those tissues rather than causing harm to, embryonic ones.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm really appreciative that scientists have took the time to figure out other forms of getting stem cells and retrieving stem cells in addition to embryos. Because I know embryonic stem cells, they're perhaps the types of stem cells with the most potential, just because they're pluripotent and can do like differentiate into any type of cell in the body, so they can be used in pretty much any type of part of the body. But I also appreciate that scientists have realized this and have understood that, for example, adult stem cells, they can be used even if they have more limited differentiating capacity, they can still be used. And I also appreciate how they've created induced pluripotent stem cells as well. So I definitely think more research is needed, but yeah, I agree with you.
And also just to comment on that, I think it's also, from a like stereotypical, let's say conventional point of view, like I guess it goes a bit against creationism that like yes, you're taking someone's life away, you know, you're taking their soul basically. So if if there's a way that's, I don't know, already figured out, or maybe we can figure it out to kind of like plant embryos, I think, and just, in artificial environments. Just like let's say in Minecraft, it's just an embryo farm. So just to a stem cell farm, just to extract stem cells without harming, the conventional reproductive system of humans and, having kids. So like let that just, outside of like the scientific goal of it. So I mean, definitely you wouldn't want to harm an embryo who's like gonna become a kid to their parents and stuff. So if it's about donors, like and you would have like zygotes and you would create that farm. So I think you're supposed to be, to be able, although it still goes against creationism, but I think you should be able to, extract stem cells, and even if it harmed or even if the blastocysts, died from that, I think it's supposed to be okay because it's just a scientific goal in the end. It's not like killing someone. So I don't know, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's also a very good point. That's the major source of like controversy and ethical consideration. You know, the perspective of, when does life begin? And so that's always a question that scientists are asking. And I really like all of your opinions and what you guys have brought to the table. So it's very good to hear, young people's thoughts because we are the future of science. And so we'll be making all of these decisions about, what limitations need to be there for stem cell research in the future. So thank you guys for sharing. That was a great perspective, all of you. And so moving on, I did want to ask if you guys understood the difference between the numerous types of stem cells. So the embryonic stem cells, the adult stem cells, as well as the induced pluripotent stem cells. Did you guys understand the differences between all of those categories? I see in the chat.
For me, it was kind of hard to keep shit because there's totipotent, omnipotent, pluripotent, oligopotent, and unipotent, and keeping all that straight was hard. I wanted to make a chart, but I did get like I guess the sources. But knowing the different types of stem cells, I feel like is a bit harder to keep in your head.
Yeah, so if you understand like the different like sources of stem cells, such as like embryonic, adult, and then the iPSCs, I think that's a very important distinction to make. So Emma, do you want to like kind of give a general overview about the different types, and then we all can add anything we found to your answers and stuff? I think that would be a very important discussion to have.
I might not have understood the different types as well. Um, so maybe somebody else could say, because I think that was the one thing I kind of struggled with.
Oh, okay, no problem. We can all, address this, like the different types of stem cells, because it's very important. And so, oh, okay, let's see. Bhumika, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. So I was thinking maybe because there are three main types of stem cells, so I was thinking maybe we all can take one type and one of us can also summarize. And so I could start. So before I start, I want to say I really think that the word, it can really help like put things into like help you memorize what they mean and stuff. And so for example, pluripotent. And so pluri, which is the prefix, it means many. And then potent means capable. And so pluripotent stem cells are capable of differentiating into many types of cells. And, for example, another example is multipotent. And so multi means multiple and potent means capable. And so multipotent stem cells, such as adult stem cells, they can differentiate into multiple types of stem cells. But I did do some research and I know that they're usually limited to the cell type that they originate from, or at least the tissue that they originate from. But yeah, so I can talk about embryonic stem cells if that's fine with everyone. And so I think embryonic stem cells are really fascinating. And so what I learned was that scientists extract embryonic stem cells from a blastocyst, like Ivani said earlier. And blastocysts are really young. I believe they're clusters of cells, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're like 4 to 6 days old, I believe. And so yes, so scientists extract embryonic stem cells from the blastocyst and then they culture it into a petri dish. And I believe that they can kind of prime the cell to differentiate into any type of cell they want to. So, for example, if we're dealing with someone with Parkinson's disease or Alzheimer's disease and we want to regenerate the brain tissue, then we can use embryonic stem cells from a blastocyst and kind of sway the cells to differentiate into neurons, maybe, or healthy nerve cells, and then implant or transplant that into the patient and develop healthy brain tissue from that. So, if it doesn't cure the disease, at least it can alleviate some of the negative effects and cause the patient to have some relief and comfort. And yeah, perhaps it can also help in pain management. So, that's something we can also explore.
Yeah, that was a great summary. Thanks, Bhumika, for talking about embryonic stem cells. That was very helpful. And so, Emma and Hadi, do you guys have a general overview about what adult stem cells are, or we can walk through it together? Do you guys have any ideas about what they do?
So the adults themselves, those are the ones that regenerate. They're not creating, they're differentiating. They're just like if something gets damaged or um, I guess the embryonic stem cells, those would probably be the ones that are more for um, organ, like when they're trying to create an organ because it's able to differentiate into um, all sorts of cells. But for the adult ones that are already specialized, it's just for healing that organ or body part.
Yeah, that's a great point that you mentioned about how embryonic stem cells can probably be used in like organ creation and all those different aspects, while adult somatic stem cells are probably going to be more into specific types of healing processes. So that's a very good point. And I also did want to mention that your adult stem cells, which are also known as somatic stem cell, and the word somatic just means like body cell. And so these stem cells are mostly made by our bone marrows. And so whenever Emma, you were talking about the bone marrow transplants in the beginning of this meeting, and so adult stem cells are very important whenever it comes to that aspect because they are very involved in the bone marrow, they're created by it. And I do believe that the bone marrow transplant, like the bone marrow stem cells, they're also called hematopoietic. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but I can type in the name in the chat in a bit. And so, yeah, as Bhumika was mentioning, like embryonic stem cells can differentiate into practically anything, while adult stem cells, they are mostly limited by the tissue or like the type of cell environments they're in. And so that's a very important distinction between embryonic and then the adult stem cells. And Bhumika, do you have anything to add, or Hadi, or anyone?
I don't have anything to add, but yeah, I guess while you type the name in the chat and stuff, we can also I don't believe there were any figures in the article or pictures, which was interesting to me because many of the scientific articles normally have pictures or diagrams. But I was wondering, so do you guys have feedback for the author? Like, would you recommend that they implement figures related to stem cells and stem cell therapies? Do you think that would help readers better understand what they're talking about? Or do you think that the authors did a sufficient job just explaining it in text?
Okay, so if I may make a point, I think that like personally, I don't know if this applies to some other people or many other people, but I don't think that, scientific articles, you know, suffice in the sense of the reader understanding or the learner understanding like the whole process, not just the points of it and just individual topics, just understand it as a mechanism. And personally, I just believe that, illustrations, like coherent and like accurate, information, just articles, alongside illustrations and probably, practical experimentations. I think that it all just, contributes to it, possibly animations. So I think, they're just great with the article because, there are tons of articles out there that's you know, that follow this conventional style. So I don't think they need to add illustrations because it will probably complicate it more. So yeah, I think they're fine. It's just on the learner themselves to just dive more into it and try to connect everything and just, look into, some illustrations and animations, like whatever resource that could help.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know if you guys did outside research, but I saw a lot of cool videos on stem cells. And if you search up like stem cell therapies and stuff, there are actually interviews with people who've at least gotten stem cell therapies and treatments done, or they know someone who did. And they're really fascinating. But I want to try to find a video that I saw. It was related to a heart condition. And so what they did was scientists used stem cells and were able to fix or at least alleviate a lot of the damage that was done to the heart. And so while I find that video, Vonnie, do you want to like carry the discussion on?
Yeah, sure. So I was also wondering, this isn't directly related to the article, but it is of stem cell research. Do you guys know of any like organism that scientists use mostly for stem cell research? Any ideas? Have you guys heard of planaria? Let me see. Okay, so planaria, they are mostly the organisms that have amazing functionality due to stem cells. they have a high percentage of stem cells, so I believe about 20% to 30%. And yes, Hadi, you're right. They are a type of like worms, I believe. I don't know what type, but they are worms, and they're adorable, by the way. They're adorable little worms. So definitely search it up if you have some time. I'll also type it in the chat. But yeah, so planaria are amazing with stem cells because their body composition is like 20 to 30% stem cells. And so, what scientists have found is that if you take a planaria and then you cut it in half or cut it wherever, they will regenerate into two new worms. And so you're going to get two new planaria if you just like cut the first one in half or something. And that is just wild. Like you should definitely check out planaria and like how they regenerate because it is so fascinating. And so a lot of research is, going through with planaria and how they possess such remarkable regeneration abilities. So yeah, if you guys have some time and you guys are bored, then definitely check it out. It's like a beautiful, beautiful process. So, Bumika, are you done with finding the video yet?
I can't find it.
Oh no, you can't find it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to find it outside and I'm gonna have to email it to you guys because it was such a good video. It's like basically, I think the cardiac or cardiovascular condition was an enlarged heart. I forgot the name, maybe cardiomyopathy, but yeah, and so then scientists were able to regenerate that tissue and like restore its health and then like shrink it to a normal sized heart. If I'm remembering it correctly, that was somewhat what it was talking about, but yeah.
Well, okay, no worries. I do know what case study you're referring to, so we will find the video for you guys because it's very amazing. And so, since we do have some time, I do want to show you a planaria regeneration time lapse. I feel like this video does a really good job, and maybe you guys will see how awesome this regeneration capability is. So, is it okay, Bumika, if I share my screen?
Yeah, do you still have access?
I should. Let me just get the video open. Give me 1 second, everybody. Let's see. Okay, let me share my screen. Can you guys see my screen? The video? Okay, perfect. Let me play it for you guys.
Okay, and so I just want to pause it and say, so what happened so far is the planaria got amputated. And so the scientists ran a scalpel, and so now you guys are going to see how planaria have so many stem cells that they're able to basically fix and heal themselves and regenerate their tail.
It's interesting how it's able to move, like both halves are able to move on their own. So it doesn't have a brain, I'm guessing it.
I
That
know.
that part's interesting to me.
It's so creepy too. It's kind of like a sci-fi movie. It's the zombie gets cut in half and then the legs walk and then the upper body walks, but so creepy. But yeah, I'll mute myself. So, yeah, I saw something really interesting in the chat. So, Hadi was talking about amniotic stem cells and how the concerns of tumorigenesis and low survival rates are probabilistic and can't be moderate. Yeah, those are really interesting points you make, and I think that's also kind of where the controversy arises and the need for like longitudinal like clinical studies. Just so that like at least if we're not able to moderate those concerns, at least like people would be aware of it before making a decision about whether they want to embark on, stem cell therapy and stem cell treatment. Yeah, there are its eyes. It's so funny. Planaria are so funny. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
so
planaria are very adorable. They're so cute. Like look at
Little
their
ears
eyes.
too.
I know, they're so cute and like they just regenerate into two little worms. Like this picture is just so cute. Anyways, this has nothing to actually do what we're talking about though. So we'll talk about how planaria are adorable in another future meeting.
I think they're creepy, but that's just me. But yeah, okay, so I see we only have 2 minutes left, and so I feel like this was a really great meeting. I mean, we were productive. We talked about stem cells, different types, their uses. And so, do any of you have any final comments, thoughts, questions that perhaps we can discuss or at least think about?
One thing I noticed was when it was talking about the bone marrow transplant, it was saying it was painful. It also said that patients reported pre-procedural anxiety, increased pre-procedural anxiety. So I wonder if, because it's sort of a new technology, if they were anticipating more pain and that made it feel more painful for them. I wonder if it was just psychological and if the patients were told, oh, it's like an easy procedure, it's not going to be painful, if it would be less painful. And since pain is usually just in the, it's like the brain's reaction. So that would be interesting for, um, I guess, for harvesting the stem cells that would
That
affect
is
them.
that is such an interesting question. And yeah, I feel like it's interesting how the brain makes pain basically, but yeah, I wonder, I also agree with you. I mean, I'm sure that because it's so new and it's like there's not much research and not many clinical studies that occurred, perhaps that caused the patient to feel more anxiety, which is really interesting to me.
Yeah, that's a great point. And oh, I see we only have about 30 seconds remaining. So I really wanted to thank you guys for attending this meeting and, giving your thoughts about stem cells and everything. We really appreciate all of your time and we love learning with you guys. So stay tuned for future meetings.